Green is hard to recognize, especially if you are dominant in orange. You will tend to deny green and find it bad and not like it. And yeah, a true green meme is an educated person. You don't get to green meme without reading books or having a lot of really intelligent conversations and educational experiences of one sort or another. Only like a quarter of adults in your society make it there. We're educated and we kind of understand philosophy and literature, and we understand history, and we understand ourselves a lot better. So now we're beginning to operate upon the rational. We're sort of meta-rational. And what we're looking at is why I believe the things I believe, why my society does what it does, how we got here. And when you start to do that, because nobody else has done it before, there wasn't a lot of work done to cover the tracks. Our world is horrific. We're terrible people. We got here by killing everyone. We have these buildings just where we're just like ripping beaks off of chickens. We have re-education centers. We're just like sticking people in there and saying like, be here until you die because we don't want you. For green, it all of a sudden becomes unacceptable that there's people being tortured to death all over the world. You're coming from orange, you know that you have a lot of responsibility in your own world, but you also know that you're part of this larger connected world that has much more serious problems than you do. People criticize green a lot in terms of being narcissistic. I'm not alone in finding it to be a little bit overdone. I think the criticisms are founded, but all first tier memes are actually narcissistic, and to a certain extent all people are extremely narcissistic, and every creature is extremely narcissistic.
I've always had this sort of theory, which is like all roads lead to narcissism.
Green, in spite of being so egalitarian and open accepting, they tend to have a lot of criticism towards people who aren't egalitarian and open and accepting. So there's this kind of funny backdoor judgment, and unfortunately some judgmental people are going to be more helpful to your cause than people who are utterly non-judgmental. Magenta is actually a pretty non-judgmental worldview, and so we actually do see a lot of magenta coming on board. Green meme being so sensitive and accepting, it tends to allow other altitudes into its circle, which is sort of a new behavior, and it's very destructive. The goal is to be more inclusive, and if you study anthropology, you kind of find that we can learn a lot from more primitive worldviews, just because they're so other to us. These sort of protests, which are based on very high-minded, intellectual, sensitive ideologies, but what happens is red meme gear, there's a protest, and they get involved, and they're allowed to be included because green meme is so inclusive. It isn't a green meme protester who throws a glass bottle at a cop, and the cop doesn't come with his gun to shoot green meme protesters. That is the ongoing relationship between red meme criminals and amber meme or orange meme police officers, and green meme cultural critics, being three distinct groups of people who are now mixing themselves up in crazy ways. Hey, we're a completely nonviolent, peaceful protest, so it's really nothing of the sort. In getting into the sort of late green meme, as it sort of becomes a little bit more transcendent, as you start getting into existentialism being sort of a disidentity with the cultural narrative of humanity, or the cultural narrative that you've been taught your whole life, and to find yourself suddenly facing just a big question mark. Just what am I? What should I do? What is the nature of the world? What is humanity doing in this world? And so there's a real desire for genuinity, genuine human interactions, not so much profit driven, but driven by a desire for actual progress, which is not always the same thing as simply growing the numbers on the page, but progress might actually include an overall healthy, holistic manifestation of social gain that isn't just for one group of people versus another group, but that would benefit all of society as a whole. The word green is so associated with various like recycling movements and animal rights and human rights and inclusion, feminism, woke culture, any Black Lives Matter. These are all green meme expressions in the interest of social equity, social justice, or planetary equity, planetary justice. So these are high-minded, sensitive, coming from a benevolent place. In being meta-rational, there's a need to pick apart what we see as rational now, and that is a destructive act. deconstruction, to get a little bit more into that, is to analyze the systems in play, break them down into their component parts. One would assume the purpose of this would be to rebuild them in a more functional manner, but it doesn't often get to that point. Cultural criticism, if it's nothing more than deconstruction, if it's nothing more than criticism and there's no positive aspect to it or a reconstructive aspect, it can become overwhelming and you arrive at a sort of nihilism or even nausea in the face of just reality itself, because everything is either nonsensical and violent towards you, or you're in this tiny space of the authentic and genuine where you're completely alone and nobody understands you and you're incomprehensible. So that's not narcissism, it's knowing so much unique information that only you know that you can't connect with other people anymore because they know different things from what you know. And it's not a desire to exclude people, it's a self-exclusion which occurs on both sides because you're not speaking the same language. If you read a lot of books that other people haven't read, you're now alienating yourself simply by doing that, by knowing what's in those books. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Depends on who you talk to.